Welcome to Armstrongism Investigated. Today we unravel one of Herbert W. Armstrong's most outlandish claims, the bizarre conspiracy that Adolf Hitler is still alive. Buckle up as we dive deep into this peculiar theory, just one piece of the sprawling web of falsehoods, failed prophecies, and sensationalism that defined Armstrong's controversial empire. Stay tuned, it's going to be a fascinating journey through the strange and surreal.
All right, welcome everyone. Let's get ready for a deep dive into something really strange.
Strange is putting it mildly, I'd say.
Oh yeah, this one is definitely out there.
Buckle up.
We're talking about Armstrongism.
And no, not the muscle building kind.
No, not that kind. This is a whole other beast.
This is a religious movement, but with, well, some pretty unusual beliefs.
Yeah, to put it lightly.
We're going to be exploring the founder, Herbert W. Armstrong.
This guy, he actually claimed that Adolf Hitler survived World War II.
You heard that right. Survived.
So going straight to the source, his magazine, Plain Truth.
Specifically, the August 1952 issue.
Where he lays out his, let's call it unconventional theory.
In an article with quite the attention-grabbing title.
Hitler did not die.
Now, to understand this, we need to consider what was happening back in 1952.
Yeah, the world was a very different place then.
It's the Cold War.
Tensions are rising.
And fears of not just communism, but also a Nazi resurgence are very real.
People are looking for answers, trying to make sense of a world that feels like it's on the brink.
And that's where Armstrong steps in.
He claims to have positive proof.
Evidence, even.
That Hitler escaped Berlin.
And is now, get this, leading a secret Nazi underground movement.
Okay, let's just pause for a second and think about that.
It's quite the claim.
A secret Nazi underground. It sounds like something out of a comic book, you know?
But when you look closely at this so-called evidence,
it gets really, really shaky.
Hearsay. Misinterpretations.
Just some truly questionable logic.
For instance, there's this anecdote about Hitler's chauffeur.
Supposedly saw Hitler's body wrapped in a blanket.
But get this, he only saw the legs.
That's it.
That's the evidence.
It's like, I saw a squirrel in my backyard, but I only saw its tail, so it must be a chupacabra.
Exactly. It's taking a tiny detail and blowing it way out of proportion.
And then there's Armstrong's explanation of how Hitler pulled off this grand escape.
Oh, it's a story, all right. A waiting airplane, secret escape routes, the whole shebang.
But again, zero, and I mean zero, verifiable evidence.
None. It reads more like a spy novel than actual historical analysis.
And the cherry on top. To prove a human body wouldn't burn completely in a fire, he uses the example of, wait for it, a pig carcass.
Yeah, I'm not sure where he got that idea from either.
I mean, was he just hanging out at barbecues, getting inspiration?
It's a peculiar choice, to say the least.
But here's where it gets really interesting, and honestly, a little creepy.
This isn't just some random conspiracy theory.
Armstrong weaves these claims about Hitler into his own unique theology.
One that deviates quite drastically from mainstream Christianity.
All right, let's dive into that theological rabbit hole a bit.
One of the core beliefs of Armstrongism is this idea called British Israelism.
British Israelism? What's that, like British people really love bagels or something?
No, nothing like that. It's the idea that the British people are actually descendants of the lost tribes of Israel.
Okay, that's a new one for me.
And this is directly connected to his interpretation of biblical prophecy, specifically the prophecy of the beast in the book of Revelation.
Now, most Christians see the beast as a symbol of evil, right? Or some oppressive power.
Exactly. It's not meant to be taken literally as a specific person, but Armstrong, he went a different route. He linked this beast prophecy to Adolf Hitler.
Wait, so he's saying Hitler's the beast from the Bible?
Not just any Hitler, though. Armstrong believed Hitler would literally be resurrected.
Resurrected, like come back from the dead, resurrected.
That's right. And not just to wander around aimlessly, but to lead a revived Roman Empire.
Hold on, a resurrected Hitler leading a Roman Empire. This is getting weirder by the minute.
It definitely goes against the grain of traditional Christian thought, to put it mildly.
So we've got a resurrected Hitler. What else?
Well, Armstrong believed this resurrected Hitler was destined to lead the world into a period of intense tribulation, paving the way for the second coming of Christ.
So it's like a biblical blockbuster movie with Hitler as the surprise villain.
Something like that.
And what role does the Pope play in all of this? Because I'm sensing there's a Pope connection here.
You'd be right. Armstrong envisioned this apocalyptic scenario where Hitler, fresh from the grave, teams up with, wait for it, the Pope,
The Pope. Seriously.
to establish this new world order. And then, of course, Jesus steps in to save the day and defeat the evil resurrected dictator. It's a unique interpretation, to say the least.
So the Pope resurrects Hitler, they team up to rule the world, and then Jesus comes back to stop them. I mean, where did he even come up with this stuff?
It really highlights how far Armstrong's beliefs strayed from traditional Christianity.
Yeah.
He saw the Pope as having some supernatural power to bring Hitler back, basically making him the leader of this new Roman Empire.
The Pope resurrecting Hitler, that's a plot twist I wasn't expecting.
It's almost like something out of a bad horror movie, but with a religious twist.
Okay, so let's just take a step back for a moment.
Take a breath.
Armstrong was writing this in 1952.
Right.
If we follow his theory, Hitler would be over 120 years old by now.
More than that, actually.
Can you imagine a 124-year-old Hitler trying to, conquer the world?
I think he'd be more worried about his afternoon nap than world domination at that point.
Exactly. But it does raise the question, are there still followers of Armstrongism who believe this?
People who think a very, very senior citizen Hitler is out there somewhere, ready to stage his comeback.
That's something we'll have to explore a little later. But first, let's look at some of the specific claims Armstrong made about Hitler's escape and see how they measure up against actual history.
Let's separate fact from, fiction, or in this case, history from conspiracy theory.
Okay, so we've talked about how out there Armstrong's claims about Hitler are.
Out there is a good way to put it, yeah.
But let's actually, dig into the details of this supposed escape.
Let's see how it all stacks up against, reality.
What actually happened?
One of Armstrong's big claims is that Hitler got out of Berlin on a plane.
He even talks about, specific escape routes, right?
Yeah, he mentions these secret airfields, clandestine flights.
The whole spy movie thing.
Exactly, but when you compare that to what we know about Hitler's last days...
It falls apart.
Completely.
So what does history actually tell us about how Hitler died?
The vast majority of historians agree. Hitler committed suicide in his bunker in Berlin on April 30th, 1945.
Okay, but conspiracy theorists always love to find, holes in the official story.
Oh, absolutely.
Did he do that?
He did. He latched onto the fact that the Allies never actually recovered Hitler's body.
So there's some mystery there.
There is. The Soviets said they found his remains, but they were later lost.
Which, is bound to lead to speculation.
Exactly, and Armstrong used that to his advantage. He said the missing body meant Hitler had escaped.
But, wasn't that bunker, totally destroyed?
It was. Intense bombing, shelling. It's very likely that any remains were, obliterated.
But Armstrong just ignored that part.
He didn't really address it, no. He focused on the missing body as, proof.
It seems like he was just looking for things that fit his theory.
It's a pattern you see a lot with these kinds of theories. They pick and choose evidence, ignore things that contradict them.
And then they use speculation to fill in the gaps.
Exactly.
But, okay, let's go back to this resurrected Hitler idea.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
He wasn't just saying Hitler escaped. He was saying he would literally come back from the dead.
That was a core part of his prophecy. He believed the Pope would actually resurrect Hitler.
Okay, hold on. The Pope.
Yeah, and then Hitler would lead this revived Roman Empire.
That's pretty out there, right?
It's a very strange concept, especially when you consider that Hitler was very much anti-Catholic.
And I'm pretty sure the Catholic Church has never said anything even remotely close to that.
Never. It's like he took these two totally different things, the resurrection of Jesus and Hitler's Nazi regime, and just mashed them together.
Like some weird Frankenstein prophecy.
Yeah, kind of. And this is where his belief in British Israelism comes in.
Right, British Israelism. That whole British people are descended from the lost tribes of Israel thing.
Exactly. Armstrong believed the British Empire was the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. He saw Hitler as a threat to that.
So Hitler was like the villain trying to mess up God's plan for the British Empire.
That's how Armstrong saw it, yes. And he believed Hitler's resurrection and return to power was part of this, cosmic battle between good and evil.
So it's all very dramatic.
Very.
But did people, actually believe this stuff about Hitler?
Oh, yes.
Really?
Armstrong was a very charismatic leader. He had a way of telling these stories that really connected with people who were looking for answers.
So they actually thought Hitler was out there somewhere, planning his comeback.
They did. And this wasn't just some abstract belief, it affected their lives.
People made decisions based on it.
Yes. Some people moved, sold all their belongings, even cut ties with family because of Armstrong's predictions about the world ending.
They thought it was all about to go down.
They believed the world was on the brink of collapse, and they had to prepare for the return of Hitler and the final battle.
Wow, that's pretty intense. It shows how powerful belief can be, even when it's based on something so strange.
Absolutely. It's a reminder to always be critical, to question what we believe, and to be careful about who we trust, especially when they claim to have all the answers.
Especially when those answers involve, resurrected dictators.
Right.
So what about today? Are there still people who follow Armstrongism and believe that Hitler is alive and well? Like, is there a secret society of elderly Hitler believers out there?
That's a question we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive, where we look at the legacy of Armstrongism and how these beliefs have evolved in the 21st century.
Right, so we've explored Herbert W. Armstrong's ideas about Hitler surviving,
His resurrection.
the whole British Israelism thing.
It's been a wild ride, for sure.
It's a lot to take in, to say the least.
Definitely not your average history lesson.
But the big question is, are there still people out there in 2025 who actually believe this?
Who still follow Armstrong's teachings, even the really out there stuff.
Like, are there people walking around today thinking a 124-year-old Hitler is about to make a comeback?
Well, it's complicated.
Isn't it always?
You see, Armstrong himself died in 1986, but his movement, Armstrongism,
It didn't just disappear.
no, it kind of splintered.
Splintered.
Yeah, different groups popped up, each with their own spin on his teachings.
So, like, a band breaking up and each member going solo.
Exactly. Some of these groups have moved away from the more extreme ideas.
Like the whole Hitler prophecy thing.
Yeah, but others, they've held on to those beliefs even tighter.
Which is, well, a little unnerving.
It's hard to imagine anyone today still thinking Hitler is alive.
Let alone about to take over the world.
Right.
But for those who do believe it, how do they picture it? Like, what's a 124-year-old Hitler even doing?
I think for them, they probably see Hitler as more of a, puppet master.
Puppet master.
Yeah, controlling things from behind the scenes.
So not leading armies or anything like that.
No, more like manipulating governments, economies.
Pulling strings from the shadows.
Exact.
So picture this. A really, really old Hitler
Like ancient,
sitting in some dimly lit room,
surrounded by conspiracy theory stuff.
sending out cryptic emails to his followers.
It's a little far-fetched, to say the least.
Okay, maybe a little.
But these beliefs, they tend to thrive on secrecy.
On feeling like you have special knowledge that others don't.
That can be very appealing to some people.
It's like being in a secret club.
But it can also be very dangerous.
Because these beliefs, they can lead to real-world actions.
Absolutely, when people act on beliefs that aren't grounded in reality.
It can cause all sorts of problems.
For themselves and others.
So what's the lesson here?
What can we take away from all of this?
After diving deep into Armstrongism and these unconventional ideas,
I think it shows how powerful belief is.
how much we crave meaning, explanations.
Even when those explanations are, well, strange.
Yeah, it's like we're wired to look for patterns, answers.
Even those answers don't really make sense.
But it also shows how important critical thinking is.
Questioning what we hear, what we believe, especially when it comes from sources that are outside of the mainstream.
It's easy to get caught up in a good story, a compelling narrative.
Especially if it confirms what we already believe.
But we have to be careful.
We owe it to ourselves and to each other to be thoughtful about the information we consume.
To be open to the possibility that we might be wrong.
That our beliefs, no matter how strongly we hold them, might not actually be true.
That's a tough one.
It is.
So in a world where misinformation and conspiracy theories are everywhere,
Everywhere you look.
how do we avoid falling for them?
It's a constant battle, but I think it starts with being skeptical.
Skeptical.
Yeah, being willing to question everything.
Even things we think we know for sure. Being curious, but also cautious.
Looking for different perspectives.
And being wary of anyone who claims to have all the answers.
Because the truth, even when it's complicated, is always better than a made-up story.
Well said. That's a great point to wrap things up on.
I think so.
Exploring these strange beliefs can be fun,
Definitely.
but it's important to stay grounded in reality
To think critically.
and to never stop questioning.
Exactly.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Armstrongism.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
And that wraps up today's episode of Armstrongism Investigated. From wild conspiracy theories about Hitler's survival to the mountain of failed prophecies, Herbert Armstrong's legacy reminds us of the dangers of unchecked beliefs and the allure of cult ideologies. Thank you for joining us as we continue to shine a light on the truth behind the myths. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because exposing the facts is the first step in breaking free from the grip of deception. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and never stop questioning.